Hello and welcome to the Newsroom with Sana. We're going to be taking a look at a number of important developments taking place in the world today, starting off with what is happening in India with Bharat Bandh, the protests that have struck nationwide by the farmers in light of the US trade deal that India has gone with, which it says impacts a lot of the farmer community and the agriculture sector. It's particularly important also in the ways that it is affecting not just the farmers across about 600 districts, but in the larger sense, the people of India that have protested against previously introduced laws as well by the Indian government that has affected their lives. They've also talked about the labor codes that were introduced last year that they say need to be taken away, that affect these farmer communities aggressively. And this is something that is to be a cause of concern for the BJP government. This is not the first time that the farmers are protesting, and we earlier saw that the BJP regime had previously also had to deal with these protests and unfortunately wasn't able to cater to their demands in an effective way. And even now, when we see the trade deals with the US, it seems that there are some real concerns that have to be addressed. And a lot of these activities are now resulting in a nationwide shutdown that is affecting many districts very seriously. Next, we're going to take a look at what is happening in Bangladesh, in which the country voted today, the first time that they're voting for the elections after Sheikh Hasina's rule and after the Gen Z-led uprising in 2024. And this is essential also in the number of key political developments that have taken place. The turnout was reportedly much better than the previous elections, and a lot of the people voting have reported that they felt freer as part of these elections. But it remains to be seen that the most crucial question is answered in the way that the people of Bangladesh have wanted and have voted. And it seems that the two main contenders are the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami-led coalition. There's, of course, a lot of activities that are still underway in terms of the official results coming in, but we'll be here to talk more about what the impact has been today and what is the likely result going to be. And lastly, we're going to be taking a look at the evolving terror threats that are emerging from within Afghanistan since the US troop withdrawal in 2021, and particularly the safe havens for terrorist organizations that exist in the country, and especially how that is not just something that Pakistan has been putting forward in light of the terror attacks by the TTP, but also the UN Security Council report that has highlighted that the TTP is given preferential treatment and that there is facilitation by the Afghan Taliban regime for these terror networks, and the fact that there is a serious concern of these threats going ahead and posing an extra regional threat. And this is, of course, a cause of concern not just for Pakistan anymore, but the entire international community and what needs to be done about that. We're going to start off with what is happening in India and what the news is and what really is the direction that these protests are going to take and what has to be taken very seriously by the BJP-led government. And for this, we've been joined by Dr. John Dayal, who's a human rights activist in New Delhi, and we've also been joined by Dr. Amarjit Singh, Director, Khalistan Affairs Center from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the show today. Dr. Amarjit, let me start with you in terms of how you are viewing what is happening in India, particularly in terms of the nationwide shutdown that we have seen. This is what the farmers had earlier also talked about and protested and had said that there will be such a strike if the deal goes underway, and this is something that the BJP has to consider. What really do you think is at stake here that the government seems not to be understanding, especially as part of this deal? If this is something that is affecting the people of India negatively, why is it that this is being pursued in the first place?
Sarah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this newsroom discussion. We'll have to understand first that the roots of BJP, which in its previous avatar was Bharatiya Jansangh, and in a common language, they had always been called as a Baniya party. And since the beginning of 20th century, when at one time in the unionist government, Sir Chotu Ram, he came up with a law where it was that only farmers can buy farmers' land. That was when this whole system of Baniya, which used to grab lands of the poor farmers, that thing ended. And we have to look at that when the BJP came into power, that how these all Adanis, Ambanis and all others actually, they have been dictating all the policies, particularly like 5, 6 years ago, when this government came up with the three farm laws, which were very, the message was very clear, particularly to the Sikh farmers, as those laws were mainly affecting Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, and the belt of Rajasthan and UP, where Sikh farmers they grow wheat, rice, and all others. And we know that how at that time even the genuine demands of farmers they were clubbed as Khalistanis and Mewalis and all other terms like a Marathi word for a rogue or for a scoundrel they used. But farmers, after a long, long struggle, they forced government to take back those three farm laws. And now it's not only the US India trade deal, though it will be signed finally in the middle of next month. But whatever details have emerged, particularly directly from the horse mouth when President Trump he wrote in on his Truth Social, and then U.S. Ambassador in India, Mr. Sergio mentioned. Then Modi came up with. This time, it's not only the farmers in North India, particularly, they are going to be affected. This time, as before, even the trade deal with New Zealand and with the European Union also. Farmers were protesting on that as well, that Indian government is bartering away the interests of the farmers for the sake of God knows what weakness the Modi here, it's Epstein files, or it is Adani case, or it is the Khalistan issue, what they are doing. So I think this time, though the details of the deal are not open yet, though after this pressure in Indian Parliament, where leader of the opposition Rahul Gandhi said that Modi government has sold away Bharat Mata, we have seen that some behind the curtain negotiations have forced American negotiators to say as they have taken away the pulses out of it. But we are looking at the broad, big agriculture sector, and it is certainly the moment the details will come out, it will be a huge, huge, not only protest, but the whole system. This time, even dairy sector, from where Gujarat Modi comes, which has a big stake in dairy sector, and all other the South India as well, that will be affected. And I can see the very glimpse of it in today's strike on Thursday. Though the farmer unions have claimed 300 million people have participated, that may not be the exact number, but the anger, uncertainty, and coming on one platform of farmers unions, trade unions, and parliamentarians, I think India will be jolted to a level that Modi government may not be able to stand on its feet when the details, more details emerge out of this deal.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Amarjit, stay with us and I'll come back to you. Dr. John Dayal, let me welcome you in the discussion too. When we see what is happening in India at the moment, of course, as Amarjit was pointing out, this is not just about the US trade deal. This is something which is far more deep-rooted, and we've seen these protests and these reservations by the farmers community for quite some time now, even in the previous protests. What do you think is missing in terms of these issues being addressed, and why is it that since the previous protest those issues have not been addressed? Do you think that there is no real motivation for the BJP to actually solve any of these issues, particularly that of labor codes that are also being spoken about within these protests that were introduced last year?
First of all, let me clarify. India is a country where agriculture is the main occupation of a very large number of people, not all of whom live in the Punjab. Every state in India has a humongous farmer community, and even those in the army, the police forces, uh, engineers themselves, any profession you take, their parents are farmers, their grandparents are farmers. Indians have roots in farming, and later education and other things, some of them have come out. India also has a tremendous large number of agricultural labor who don't own their own land but work in other people's lands. And of course, there is then again a section of unemployed people whose numbers really the government doesn't want to tell, who have neither land nor jobs and are actually surviving on the free rations that the government of India gives them. So poverty is rampant in these sections, and there is anger. The anger doesn't get expressed and doesn't come into the news, largely because the police are quite vicious in the states. In the farther away you're from Delhi, the harsher the police is, particularly in states like UP, Bihar, and Maharashtra, for instance, quite vicious. So, but this time, almost all sections of society who have been impacted and affected by the agricultural crisis of the last 4 or 5 years, also by the new laws, also by the fact that people who go and work in the US are possibly going to be displaced and rendered unemployed by AI and by the huge visa fees that have been imposed by Mr. Donald Trump. Collectively, there is anger and angst in the country. Will it be reflected in the results of the elections that are due in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal? Has to be seen. If it does not get reflected, then that's reason for concern because the agitations are strong, the anger is huge. Why is it not reflecting in a political statement in elections? My own thinking is that the situation of the economy is grim. The real wages after removing inflation and other things have declined. Purchasing power has declined. Who are the people who buy wine from Europe or expensive cars from Italy and the US? Who are these people? A handful. The rest of us drive small cars or drive bullock cars. Many of us do that actually. So the Trump laws, if I may call them, which Mr. Modi has accepted, will only aggravate the situation of the poor. And India's majority remains poor.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Amarjit, let me get back to you. When we see then this is the situation, and this is, of course, something happening under the BJP rule, do you think that there are any other parties, you mentioned Congress in your previous answer as well, will they be able to give the kind of action that is needed, the kind of intervention that is needed by the farmers community or others in India, the kind of life that they're looking for? If given the chance, if coming to power, do you think that these people have hopes from any other political elements or powers within India other than the BJP to help their cause?
I think India's agriculture sector is worth more than $580 billion. And I think not only the opposition parties and even regional parties will be supporting the farmers' cause, but I don't rule out even the rebellion within the BJP itself. At one time, the RSS farmer outfit Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, they had been issuing statements contrary to what was the mainstream policy of BJP. So I think RSS, which is having its hands on the pulse of the rural part, particularly, I think there will be rebellion within the BJP itself, and Modi government, even state governments, as most of the Indian states are today being governed by BJP, they will be toppled. The way thing is, still the details are not out, but we can see the simmering anger, we can see the uncertainty, and the farmer suicides, even in the states of Gujarat and Maharashtra. In Maharashtra's Saurashtra region, though BJP has been able to grab power there by all the dirty means, but thousands of farmers have committed suicide in the previous years. And with this now uncertainty and compromising with as when the American Secretary of Labor, He says that now the American farmers, they will be billionaires. Indian market is open for them. We don't know behind the curtains what they have agreed to. So I see it that not only the whole opposition and regional parties will be standing by with supporting farmers, but even there will be rebellion within the BJP itself.
Right. And do you think that that can actually take place as part of the current protests that are going on right now in terms of how the government is going to deal with this shutdown?
No, I think this will build up slowly when the minute details will emerge by the middle of March. Only then we will see the sudden outburst of all this simmering anger, which is now they are organizing. It was a first all India level protest today, very successful. And in Punjab also, with the through our own sources, we know that how much anger is there. And in the even Rakesh Tikat of Bharatiya Kisan Union, when we look at it this time, they know that it will be a final battle of do or die by the agriculture sector of the India, which is very poor already. They have at the strength of IT sector and others. Farmers had been ignored. Now they are giving them some lollipops like 5,000 rupees in their account and all and all. But this deal will be like a very killing for the Indian farmers in all, particularly not only in the north, even in the south. Every farmer in every state and union territory of India, and as Dr. John Dayal has mentioned, that even those who don't own lands, the which we call laborers or kamme, as in Punjab we call, even their bread and butter depends on the farmers' existence. So I think this, even in the previous agitation 5 6 years ago, when the agitation was against three farm laws, the much was not covered about that section of labor which fully supported the farmers' agitation. So this time also it will be a huge uh, protest, not only protest, I think the BJP won't be able to stand that pressure. And not only that, government can be toppled even in the states. I don't rule out even the violent protests in other parts of the country as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Amarjit Singh, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom
Most
today.
welcome, madam. Thank you.
Dr. John, let me come to you now with reference to how we see the current situation. There is, of course, a lot that is happening with regards to the farmers community. But as Amarjit was also pointing out, do you think that there are way forward within the BJP elements that are sympathetic towards these causes and are concerned about how they're going to pan out? And then essentially, when we take a look at the kind of protests that are going on right now and the possibility of it turning violent, do you think that the other elements within the BJP will be able to exploit this to their own advantage to a possible crackdown against them?
I live in India, and quite obviously, I cannot agree with all the statements made by the other participant. That's obvious. I also travel across India, and I'm not just focused on the Punjab. There is no doubt that the accord with America favors America. American farmers, American government, American war machine, American banks, you name it. It is going to have a profound and deep impact on Indian agriculture, on Indian horticulture, on Indian animal. We are importing animal feed. This animal feed is not what Indian cows eat. This may possibly be very useful, I suppose, for the hog industry. And so, will India's farming practice change so intrinsically as to accommodate the large imports that we're going to get of whiskey and beer after the brewing what's left to be imported and other stuff? Oil seeds, although they say pulses are not to be, but who knows what is the small print there? So the impact on Indian agriculture is going to be deep rooted. It is not going to be confined only to the Punjab or the Sikh farmers. As I said earlier, the farming sector is not only of those who own the land, it's those who work on the land, those who work, who service the people who work on the land. It's the downstream, it's an entire chain. And much of India depends on that chain. I also said that the labor laws impact organized labor. The other third impact was people who are not organized, who are living on government doles and government work, what is called Manrega, named after Mahatma Gandhi. There's been change, it's been reduced. And that's also created anger. So collectively, there is tremendous anger. The problem is, how does it translate into general elections and state elections, which are fought on very different grounds? The general elections are still some years ago, ahead of us. They're not right away. How will government control these people? How will the opposition continue? There are parties like the Telugu Desam, there's parties like Mr. Nitish Kumar in Bihar. Will they be able to contain their own parties? And will they continue to support the BJP? These are questions which even psephologists are not able to answer. Political scientists do not know. So it's not just saying that there's a rebellion and Mr. Modi's government will fall tomorrow. But there is a fact of the matter, which is that Mr. Modi cannot boast that he has the situation under control, that the people love him, and that he will be able to take any challenge and win. The opposition has to get its act together. That is absolutely there. Some of these laws, even the opposition had been guilty of doing, the Congress and other parties. So and some of the things are from there. The farmer suicide is 40 years ago, and it came when the Green Revolution started, when fertilizers started, when people had to take loans to buy fertilizer, and they couldn't pay back the loans, and they had no option but to commit suicide. Cumulatively, tens of thousands or maybe a few lakhs of farmers have committed suicide. But that itself is not sufficient, if I may say so. It's a very cruel word to modify or modulate politics at the ground. We need a movement like Jayaprakash Narayan or somebody who can convert this anger into a popular upsurge, which can be reflected in the election. Transition has to be peaceful in India.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. John Dayal, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom today. There's a lot going on in India, of course, with these Bharat Bandh protests, but this is something that is of serious concern to the farmers' community and should be of serious concern to the BJP government as well. How they're going to deal with this matter is something that we'll be seeing across the coming days, and what exactly will be the future of the US-India deal is also something that we need to be cognizant of. But what is more important is to address the key deep-rooted issues within India. Next, we're going to take a look at what is happening in Bangladesh that saw its elections being held today, in which a large number of people turned out and voted for their favorite candidate. And it is something that many have reported feeling good about in terms of the kind of environment that existed and in the way that these elections were conducted. It seems that mainly the BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami are up against each other. But what is going to be the likely future of the results? It remains to be seen, as of course official results are still being compiled. For this, we've been joined by Colonel retired Ashraf Deen, who's a political analyst from Dhaka. Thank you very much, Colonel Ashraf, for being part of the show today. You've had some great elections being conducted in the country today, and we've been hearing really good news about the conduct of the elections. We'd like to hear from you as well, how you think these elections went by today, and how did your own voting go?
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, Sana. Thank you very much for inviting me for to discuss about the elections happening in Bangladesh. Alhamdulillah, we must say Summa Alhamdulillah. It went very well, and the whole day was really, we were in tension what is happening. I was in one of the election monitoring cell centrally, and we found throughout the country, from the very beginning of the day in the morning, it started 7:30 in the morning. But we out of all the 12 elections we had so far, last three or four elections were really not elections. And the elections, two elections during Sheikh Mujibur Rahman were also not elections. So there were a lot of discrepancies, there were a lot of corruptions and, false voting and election rigging, totally, election engineering, everything they have tested on this. But this is for the first time we have seen a wonderful election. The government has taken all types of preparation, and I must say the patriotic army of Bangladesh, the defense forces, and the Ansar and the police, even BNCC, Bangladesh National Cadet Corps, they all were engaged in all the polling booths. We had this time, too many polling booths, like around 42,779 polling booths around the country. It's too huge. So to give the security of this thing is not very easy, giving physical security, let's say, by the army or police, unless the people are cooperative. I will say that people are really cooperative. People did not want any sort of, unfair means, and they wanted to a free and fair election only. So this has happened, alhamdulillah. Before the election, the night before the election we were in tension. What is happening if somebody is trying to do the false voting at night as the years before? But nothing of this sort happened because it was a concerted effort by the government and by the administration and also by the defense forces. Now, we had as many as 2,028, including 275 independent candidates. We had total 2,028 candidates for 299 seats. One seat has been postponed because of the sudden death of the candidate. So in the whole country, actually not much of incidents have taken place. Some people tried to really go and capture the polling center, but when the army came, things diluted, and again everything resumed. Some people in one odd cases tried to do the vote rigging, but those also could be handled. So there is only one death case in Barisal, and not much of any bloodshed or normally what happens during this sort of elections. There are too many tortures and unwanted incidences. So that thing did not take place. And because the question is, because of the July Revolution, all people were very serious, people of all ages, I must say. And the turnout, you must have seen, the turnout of the people was quite a bit. Those who could not really reach the voting center, they did not attend the. They did not go to for voting, but they could not do. Otherwise, too many people have joined the election. People have really those who are in Dhaka, they have already left Dhaka, and the government has given 3 days holidays, and they have gone to the villages for just voting only. So that's how I will say that it was a wonderful, in a celebrating mood, the election has taken place. The two major political parties, like one is BNP, another is Jamaat-e-Islami. But both of them have got two platforms. BNP has got a platform with 12 parties, not very significant parties other than BNP. And another, seat sharing, understanding alliance, you can say, of where the Jamaat Islami is the largest party. So, but again, to tell you very frankly, this alliance of 11-party alliance headed by Jamaat Islami, you can't call it a Islamic alliance because all parties here are not Islamic parties. So it was a democratic alliance for the purpose of the election, and so that's how the criticizing one another about the Islam and then other things did not get much of priority, and people tried to do it, talking about 71 war and trying to blame each other, but people did not accept this sort of logics. In this election, 2 points were very important, very, very, very important to everybody. It is not the symbol of any party. It is not a towering personality of any party. It was 2 aspects only. One is to have a corruption-free government and to have the government of insaf, to establish insaf in the country. People wanted to vote the people who do not have any bad record in the past. So they wanted the people wanted to really vote for the candidates who are fair, they are educated and capable. And number 2 is the India issue. As a matter of fact, the Bangladesh people are not anti-Indian, but whatever India has done in their past 55 years, they have not given really any value, any respect to the sovereignty of the country. These people understand very clearly.
These are very important points, Ashraf, that you mentioned, and these are very integral to the elections. Thank you so much for joining the newsroom and being part of the show. There's, of course, a lot that still remains to be seen as to how these elections are going to transpire in terms of what results are coming in. And for that, we've been joined by Mohammad Kamruzzaman, who's a journalist from Dhaka. Thank you very much for joining us in the newsroom today, Kamruzzaman. What's the latest that you've got for us on ground as what is the current situation? We're hearing, of course, a lot of the unofficial results pouring in. Well, how soon do you think that we'll be able to look at the final results?
So, thank you very much. It's really a matter of great enthusiasm here, even in the election commission office. There are so many journalists, so many observers, so many curious people, and also the top leaders of politicians. And the election commission is now declaring the result, but till now, not a complete result of a single constituency has been declared. They are partly declaring, but from a different unofficial sources, we came to know about the complete result of some constituencies. And till now, out of almost more than 20 constituencies, BNP own in 13, Jamaat Islami 5, National Citizen Party with the student one, and another candidate, independent candidate in own constituency. So the results are coming, and there is hectic competition, and till now BNP is a little bit ahead, but there are some constituencies in northern Bangladesh where in most of the constituencies, Jamaat Islami, according to unofficial information, have owned. So there is hectic competition till now, and it's difficult to say who is going to form the government, but seemingly as the biggest political party, BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, may form the upcoming government, but he is very close competitor in the Jamaat Islami, as there is no politics of how many dethroned regime that ruled the country nearly 70 years and destroyed the democratic norms and the election process. So people are now waiting for the complete result, and people are expecting that whoever will win, they will follow the just way. They will follow the rule of law, justice, because the uprising that the country witnessed in 2024 was mainly to eradicate discrimination and injustice, corruption, extortion, and other human rights violations like extrajudicial claims and disappearances. So we can say in a nutshell that the whole country is waiting to see a complete result in 299 constituencies out of 300 constituencies.
Right. Thank you very much, Kamruzzaman, for joining us and giving us the latest update from Bangladesh. There is, of course, a lot of the process still remaining in terms of the final counting to be conducted. And so we'll be here looking at what is going on and, of course, what the result is going to show as to who is going to be the next leader in Bangladesh and what party is going to lead the country from the current political scenario that it is in. We're now going to move on to what is happening in Afghanistan and the kind of terrorist threats that are emanating from within the country and the safe havens that exist and the facilitation that the Afghan Taliban regime continues to provide to these terrorist organizations. This is not just something Pakistan has been pointing out, but is also part of the UN Security Council report, which has highlighted that this facilitation exists with preferential treatment given to the TTP. To talk more about this, we've been joined by Dr. Joseph Siracusa, who's an international security expert. Thank you, Dr. Joe, for being part of the show today. My first question to you would be in terms of when you see what has happened in the aftermath of the U.S. troop withdrawal in 2021, the kind of support and threats that are existing of the terrorist organizations within Afghanistan are very real. Pakistan has put forward this stance, so has the UN. How does the international community view this, and what are their expectations from the Afghan Taliban regime?
Well, there are two things here. I mean, the larger community look at this very, very closely, as a matter of fact. Pakistan, of course, shares a 2,600-kilometer border with Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is not really particularly interested in anything that Islamabad wants them to do. I mean, they allow terrorists to launch attacks from their soil. And then when they come back across the line, they ignore other things, and and of course they don't recognize the Doran land. And so, you know, they are full-blown separatists. You know, the heady days from Imran Khan and their hope, their gratitude. I mean, the hope for Afghanistan hasn't panned out. I mean, in international relations, the nations think that gratitude lasts a long time. Well, it doesn't. Afghanistan now has its freedom. It literally wore out the United States, and they're trying to do the same thing with Pakistan. They're trying to wear the Islamabad government down. They're trying to demoralize people and to demoralize the armed forces. So they're trying to get their way, you know, this way. Now, the only way, I mean, the international community is watching very closely what you do. I mean, you are, what, 253 million people against 45 million people. You have nuclear weapons and a fine fighting force up against a nation that has just got guerrilla warriors. So, you know, in a sense, people don't understand that. So they're going to have to, I think Pakistan is going to have to size this up again and recalibrate how it approaches Kabul. It has to let them know that attacks from Afghan soil on Pakistan are regarded as an attack by Afghanistan on Pakistan. So they can't. These places can't be used for havens. And look, the TTP, they're using very heavy-handed techniques here: suicide bombers, killing children, soldiers, and the like. I mean, this is irregular warfare. This has got nothing to do with regular warfare. This is just terrorism. And so in this sense, terrorism is alive and well. And of course, the world worries about that because we know that the war on terror is not over, that it has simply morphed into something else. And so what's happening on your borders, I think, is a great concern to nations like Australia, United States, and England and France, which pay a lot of attention to how we respond to terrorism.
Right. We've seen that Pakistan has, of course, engaged with the Afghan Taliban regime to resolve these matters. So have other countries like Turkey and Qatar. What do you think can be done by the regional countries in terms of moving forward and finding out a verifiable mechanism? Or do you think that countries can get together and do that themselves? And especially Russia's involvement in the matter as the only country recognizing the Afghan Taliban regime.
I think Russia is an ideal nation to broker a sort of an arrangement. Now, your defense minister famously said some time ago that the Afghans are incredibly unreliable. So, you know, Islamabad can't take their word for it. They say what they have to say to make certain deals, and then they get out of it. I mean, the only way to deal with these people is what we used to call in America compellence diplomacy or forceful diplomacy. I mean, I think the only thing they're going to understand is some kind of a military resolution. Now, Pakistan, of course, you got the Baluchistan problems, and you got these people on your border. I mean, I think Pakistan, which has been is well regarded in the Western world, I think it's under the gun. I mean, so people are looking at how it responds. Now, it needs a broker here. And Russia, I know, has recognized Afghanistan, but nobody else has, as a matter of fact, though the UN does look at the problems there. So I think you're going to have to take this to the international community. I think the Russians would be very much interested in brokering a deal. And let me also suggest, too, that the Chinese diplomatic corps, the Chinese foreign ministry, would be very interested in coming in and trying to broker a deal. I mean, China has a very, very good foreign policy, foreign machinery, and it wants to do these kinds of things. As you recall, last year they wanted to broker a deal in Ukraine. They had a wonderful peace plan, but nobody was interested. But I think using Russia, and if it's too busy with Ukraine, you could turn to China. China would be a very fair partner here. But the point has to be made to the Afghans very clearly that an attack from Afghan soil on Pakistani soil is an attack on Pakistan. I mean, they don't seem to understand this. And so I think the force has to be made a little clearer. Now, I don't know what the military position is on this. Maybe they think that Afghanistan will come to the same party. But from where I sit, the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistan Taliban, they look the same, they talk the same, they have the same goals. They both believe in separatism. That is, they don't accept Pakistani borders. So they're playing from the same playbook. But, you know, when you start killing children and soldiers, with bombs, suicide bombs, you're playing a very different game here, and so they think they've got time on their side, and they wore out the Americans after 20 years, and so maybe they reckon they can wear out the governments in Islamabad. I hope that's not true.
Right. And Joseph, I understand what you said in terms of an attack emanating from Afghanistan being an attack on Pakistan. But what do you think are the options available to Pakistan? We've already conducted dialogue and that hasn't worked. What other options exist?
Well, I think the talking is probably ended. I mean, I think Pakistan is going to have to think about punishing Afghanistan for its behavior and for allowing these things. I mean, I think people should be looking at punitive measures. You know, it could even be economic kinds of things or holding things back. And I'm sure Afghanistan is greatly reliant on Pakistan on a number of items, economically and things like that, and commerce. So I suppose you could do that. But at the end of the day, I think you have to look at punitive measures. And no country in the world is expected to absorb those kinds of terrorist attacks without striking back. I mean, you have international law on your side. And these attacks, they're not taking place at the border exactly. They're taking place on Pakistani soil. And so, you've got international law behind you. And so I would imagine that the Pakistani military has plenty of options they're thinking about. But you have to revert to what Thomas Schelling once called compellence diplomacy. You got to force people to play by the rules. Because if you're going to start bombing children and killing soldiers where they eat and sleep, those aren't rules that you have to pay attention to.
Mr. Joseph, we see these terror attacks linking back to India, which has been sponsoring and supporting in terms of terror financing, and the kind of relations we see between the two developing recently also is a cause of concern. What action do you think must be taken against such a country that's supporting these terrorist activities?
Well, it's pretty clear to me and people who pay attention to international relations that India is very pleased by what's going on. It will attempt to take advantage of the discord between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And in fact, with some elements, particularly with Pakistan, there might even be proxy wars going on, because, the great prize for India is controlling Afghanistan, whose soil holds limitless amount of material and rare minerals and things like that. I mean, it's a gold mine for one day, and not only just that, but geographically, strategically. So I think India would have to be called to account, and in a very forceful way. Now, look, you don't want to go to war with India over Pakistan, but you want to make it very clear to India that they have no business supporting these people and that there should be enormous pressure on India through third parties. This is a good chance for someone like President Trump, who swears that he's trying to bring peace to most of the world. I mean, I think the Trump administration could actually be interested in brokering some kind of a deal. And particularly, given Trump's relationship with Modi, I think he could actually leverage that. But Trump would be very, very predisposed to the problems that Pakistan had, and be very predisposed to looking at solutions. And one of the things I think they would do is they would put the heat or pressure on India to draw back a little bit, because the president, I think, is determined to stop the bloodletting, and this is only going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Right. And speaking about the United States, what sort of responsibility do you think that the U.S. has in Afghanistan now, especially when we see that a lot of the leftover arms and ammunition has found its way back to these terrorist organizations?
The estimate is the United States left about $5 billion in arms, airplanes, and guns in Afghanistan when they left on that particular day. And the United States has an obligation to follow this up. Now, I noticed that a lot of the TTP and a lot of the Afghan Taliban, they use M16s, the standard American rifle, soldier's rifle. And this is a great pity, of course, these fell into their hands. And the fact that they're using these weapons, which were left by the United States, and by the way, President Trump was very angry when those weapons were abandoned, particularly at that Air Force base. I think he could be interested in sort of, they have an obligation. They ran the place for 20 years. And then it went backwards. I mean, Afghanistan today seems to me to be a rogue state. That is, no one's really in control. If you can't control bandits or terrorists on your territory, then you have no control at all. And so what we have is a number of family or tribal arrangements all over the place. But I think the United States could be interested in striking a deal that is can be called upon to sort of honor its obligation. After all, it armed the place, then it left the place, and the United States did not leave Pakistan with all its troubles. So in a way, you've inherited America's 20-year experiment.
Right. And Joe, you mentioned Mr. Trump, and of course he's championing himself as a peacemaker. What sort of additional efforts do you think that the U.S. can possibly make in Afghanistan now? And what sort of concerns does the U.S. and the larger international community have, given the reassurances that the Taliban had earlier given to the U.S.?
But you know what the play is here? Pakistan is a nuclear weapon state. There are only 9 of them in the world today. And you've got a problem with a nation that doesn't have nuclear weapons. Now, President Putin would say to the Ukrainians, well, you can get people to pay attention to tactical nuclear weapons. There are many weapons you can use besides strategic nuclear weapons. The fact that Pakistan is a recognized nuclear weapon state allows it to sit at tables other nations can't sit at. It allows itself to have the attention of the great powers that other nations do not have. I don't think you play the card enough. I mean, I'm very nice to nuclear weapon states. I don't want to mess with these people. I want to help them with their problems. And if you have a problem that, say, with Afghanistan, you find out that the Indians are involved in this up to their eyeballs, and then you have the possibility of a nuclear exchange in South Asia, which would just, which would grab the attention of everybody. So at the end of the day, I think the nuclear club has an obligation to help its nuclear members to solve situations like this, which could easily scale the nuclear ladder, the violence ladder. That doesn't have to be, that can be averted. So I think the United States can be called upon not only for his historic bungling of Afghanistan, but the fact that it has a friendly ally, a nuclear ally that is bothered by terrorism, which could easily spin out of control. So I think you have a lot of arguments you haven't used. I don't see many Pakistani diplomats knocking at Trump's door, but I do know a lot of people I've met over the years at various conferences in his administration who would be very interested, I think, in playing a role, because the United States does want to play a positive role. And I think if a nation like Pakistan would remind the United States of its leadership on the war on terror and its obligations to the neighbors of Afghanistan, you just can't leave a nation in ruins like that.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Siracusa, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom, talking to us at length about what the current situation is, especially with regards to terrorist activities in safe havens in Afghanistan. And that's not just something that Pakistan has been pointing out. It is part of the UN Security Council report and is something that is a matter of concern for the larger international community to exercise their actions against these particular threats and to influence the Afghan Taliban regime to fulfill their earlier promises. That's all we have from the newsroom today. We'll now see you tomorrow.